start by, I'll just go in order of the comments, in order of how they were received. Lori, are you ready? I think you're running the timer. Okay, sorry about that. So first we'll have Andrew Weaver, followed by Douglas Nickel. So when it's your turn to speak, please go to the microphone.
So my name is Andrew Weaver. I have 2 sons at Brooklands. So are we going to address that Beth Davis is not at this table? Why is the district not being forthcoming with why that is? There was a FOIA request submitted. There was documents turned over related to DEI. One of those documents has been taken back and not made available to the public. And it times up with when Beth Davis stopped replying to FOIA requests. If this is why she's not sitting at the table, this is something that should concern all RCS employees. This is why many of us have said we need policies and procedures that are transparent. We should ask, why is Beth Davis being overran with FOIA requests? Because the district is not transparent and people want information. That is leadership failing Beth Davis. I have many concerns and why I think Beth Davis probably should no longer be sitting at that table. If it is for releasing that video that made it aware to us that gender ideology was being brought into classrooms, that is not the reason she should not be sitting at that table. Leadership should have policies and procedures that require everyone to know what their roles and responsibilities are and what they are to do and what they are not to do. If she is being inundated with FOIA requests, leadership should figure out why are we having that many FOIA requests? What should we be doing different so that we aren't having someone be so overwhelmed that she's going to make a mistake that costs them their job? Teachers should not have to worry that at some point this is all going to blow up and Shaner's going to lift his hands up and say, I didn't tell you to do it, and the teacher will be held responsible. That is what leadership is supposed to do. That is what the union should be fighting for, to protect our teachers. Most of our teachers are doing the right thing. But again, when we're talking about mental health of students, and there is more and more documents coming out as psychologists are becoming more brave and speaking up, that this is going too far. That the gender ideology, there is risk to it, especially to our young girls. That the mental health of our young girls. And so when this blows up and it comes to light that we are causing more problems than we're fixing, Shaner will say, but I didn't tell him to do it. And they will be held responsible, just as we're seeing someone make a mistake. So when are we going to identify the failures of leadership that put our students, our teachers at risk? As you see, a continued bloating of salaries at the district office. At the last meeting, we were told we had 6 licensed auditor or accountants. But again, we can't get a budget for the new admin building. These are common sense things that have to be addressed. And so at what point is the board going to do its job?
Next, we have Douglas Nickel, followed by Deanna Harless.
Hi, good evening. Wondering, in the future, could you have like a podium up here? I'm sure some people have to lean or rest some documents on.
Thank you for that feedback.
Okay, thank you. I'm Douglas Nickel. I'm a 24-year resident. I'm a small business owner and what's called a forensic engineer, which means I like to dig into things and do research. It kind of irritates people. But I took the opportunity earlier to look at the agenda for tonight. There are a few items I want to discuss as well as my main topic, which I believe you touched on. It went over pretty quick. You discussed the educational materials review. It was item 6.3, I believe. It went by pretty quick. I was hoping we could get some more depth in that, because my concern is the materials used for some of the students. Currently, I find some of the subject matter obscene or pornographic. You've got minors in these schools. They're under 18. They have access to this in the school library. In the public library, that's different. It's a different type of access. But you technically are providing these materials to minors under 18. I think that should be addressed and reviewed. Also, the review process. Who recommends, who reviews, who approves, not just the process, but the people involved? Can that be made public as well? Let's see here, sorry. And my other topic is I gotta put this folder down, sorry. I'll get into this folder later. I've come across some materials the past week that in a matter of 2 months, there were dossiers made on more than 200 parents and residents in Rochester who may have criticized or questioned some of the actions of the board. 222 dossiers in a matter of 2 months. That's really ambitious. I thought about reading these 220 names, but it took over 5 minutes. So to make it a little easier, I handed out copies to a lot of the people in the audience tonight. As well, I've got copies on the back table. Now back to the folder in front of me. As I mentioned, I'm a forensic engineer. I like to dig into things, do a little research. It's amazing what you can find with a few names, a few email addresses, and, a little time on the internet. You can find anything from sites that people visited, like news sites, vacation spots, summer camps, attorneys, and sometimes questionable sites that probably should not be looked at. And that's what I've got here.
If you can please wrap up, Mr. Nickel, your time's
Yeah,
up.
I'm almost done. Sorry.
Your time's up. We just want to be respectful of everyone who is
Okay, no
here
problem.
to
Thank
speak.
you.
Thank you.
Hello. Nicholas Martin. I have 2 daughters in the district. There are so many issues right now plaguing the district. It is nice to see some of those addressed today. Thank you. Still, the community is wondering how the BOE and administration can just go on as if nothing happened. And now it's just business as usual for you. It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow for us. The tactics to calm the voices down by rescheduling, relocating, changing times of meetings obviously hasn't stopped more people from becoming aware of the problems we have in this community. I missed the part about the current admin building. I'll have to rewatch that portion because I am interested in that. I want to say thank you to the member of the BOE who recommended more checks and balances to prevent our school district from spying on the community members. Even though there are already guidelines in place, at least it is a step in the right direction and hearing the parents. I'm not happy with all the talk about the books. It's all about the books right now, that a lot of the community are up in arms about. It's really not cool that the stuff is in our public libraries, school libraries, not the public library. I believe the root of that problem, though, isn't just the books in the library. The root of the problem is actually the leadership, the administration, letting that stuff get into the school libraries in the first place. There should be checks and balances to see what kind of books are coming into our libraries and allowing maybe a parent advisory board or committee to actually look over the books and agree together as a community what we should be allowing, not just saying we're going to let this happen. I just don't know how we could get to this point without poor leadership. Like, it should already have not happened, but here we are. So, between the lawsuits and the spying list that I'm probably on, by the way, because I care about our kids and this community deeply, like some of you say also. I know you care, it's just we need to come to terms together on how we care about it. I'm still asking for a third-party investigation on Shaner and the upper administration. I'd like to get some kind of voice back from you on how we can go about that. I'd like that to happen. I know there are a lot of other people that would like that to happen also. And I'm still asking the Board of Education to do their job. Terminate Shaner. terminate Debbie Pergameni.
Mr. Martin, time's up. Next, time's up.
Thank you.
Next.
So my name is Emily Stowe, and I have 2 children in the district, and I too am a taxpayer. I want to first say how proud I am of what our school district does for all our children. Our teachers, staff, and paraprofessionals work day in and day out for our kids. I'm in awe of what they do for an entire school community. I also want to say that I believe our Board of Education and Administration have done the best they could the past years under the circumstances. Our kids and staff are back in the classrooms. We have optional masking. Sports and school events are back in. Field trips are happening again. And parents and volunteers are able to help again in the buildings. These are all things we should all be celebrating and thankful for. Now, were there bumps in the road, missteps, poor communication, unpopular decisions at times? Absolutely. I haven't agreed with everything the RCS administration has done and decisions that they've taken. Some have disappointed me. But I have stayed respectful, professional, and open to compromise when contacting and speaking with RCS administration. I haven't had a fit just because I didn't get my way with RCS. I haven't gone out to push my political or religious agenda on teachers and staff just because I didn't personally like what is being taught in classrooms and media centers, which, by the way, are run by educators with years of pedagogical experience, workshops, and service under their belts. I haven't gone out to intimidate and slander volunteers and parents just because I didn't agree with their personal stance and thought my opinion was the only one to be heard and validated. Yes, RCS administration has made mistakes and hasn't always communicated clearly. Yes, they haven't always made decisions I and others have agreed with. The board and administration are not perfect. None of us are. They will mess up, they will fumble, but I truly believe that the board and administration have our kids' education and social-emotional growth at the forefront of what they do. I believe RCS board administration have the staff's well-being at the forefront of what they do. We, the community, have got to be better on how we talk to each other. We have to learn to compromise and be respectful. It can't be our way or the highway. We will never get anything accomplished if all we do is scream, threaten, and disseminate false information to get our way. We need to get back to thinking about and working for our children, our kids, our teachers, and our staff.
Thank you.
They deserve our best selves.
All right, good evening. Dr. Phil here, father of 2 daughters at Rochester High. Tonight it might be a surprise to find out that, wait for it, yep, I have compliments to share with the board.
Can you just move slightly closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Yep, got compliments to share with the board tonight. So I got 2 last-minute additions after listening earlier. First one, Bob Shaner. This is only my 2nd meeting after attending last month when you didn't. Thank you for making a special guest appearance, and nice of you to be here tonight.
Please direct your comments to the board and not to the superintendent. This is for you to direct comments to the board.
International Academy, how exciting for them to still retain the tradition of final exams. Enjoy it while you can. I thought I heard the DEI presentation, something about an evolving world, which kind of seemed to contradict tradition. And back to my regularly scheduled compliments. Pledge of Allegiance. When we got back to in-person learning, I heard some observations that during morning announcements when we normally stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, a lot of students weren't, not even some teachers. So again, compliments to the board as a whole for still doing the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting and at the sporting events. I like that. Deep learning. Here's the good one. During the last meeting, there was a presentation on a new approach to learning for students in classrooms based on the 6 C's: character, communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and citizenship. So I wanted to compliment the board for this presentation. It was interesting and got me to thinking, wouldn't it be great if we took it up a level and actually applied those concepts to the board? For example, character. Maybe the board could actually formulate and follow principles, values, and conduct that could direct your behavior, such as integrity, respect, transparency, and accountability. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it to reestablish a trustworthy relationship with the community. Communication. Maybe instead of just listening to the public, you could better respond to inquiries and share rather than conceal district intentions, actions, motivations, and the actual content of curriculum. Or to use the new DEI terminology I used tonight, the board should stop being a barrier to access of district information by marginalizing certain types of parents. Did I use that correctly in a sentence? Collaboration. Wouldn't it be nice if communication could naturally flow into collaboration and interactive engagement toward mutual goals? Creativity. With a community full of diverse perspectives, it would seem that value could be added to the community as a whole as a result of sharing these ideas during collaboration. Critical thinking. I've told my daughters several times over the last couple of years, when things don't make sense, we need to remember, not everything's based on logic. Reevaluating critical thinking as part of a decision process could be a refreshing shift, especially in an educational setting. Citizenship. Exploring impact to society at large would seem to be a worthy consideration, especially in an environment where you should be accountable to the community. For example, the board could acknowledge failures that the last lady spoke about, evaluate new lessons that are being learned, and actually indicate how society will be better served in the future. And there was a seventh
Time's up.
career.
Please wrap up. Please wrap up. Thank you.
You could use your experience here to update your resume, demonstrate and enhance value
Thank you
to
for your
future
comments.
prospects after the election in November.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
My name is Stephanie Vandale. I'm a taxpayer, and you don't need to know where my kids go to school, but you probably already do because I'm on the Shaner dossier. I'm shocked, and that's my reaction, and I'm the mother of 3 teenage boys. So in the recent clip posted at findingtherightanswer.com, Shaner's yelling, berating, and insulting another mother, dare I say colleague, and a member of my community. And that was it. I am done with your failed leadership. Each one of you need to resign now. Kristen Barbanis and Mike Zabit were all there in the room with Shaner at the October Rochester Hills Public Library community event. Not a single one of you, none of you, stood up and told him to stop his public verbal abuse of Jessica Opfer. Why didn't you stop him? None of you have been holding him accountable for any of his actions. Even in the Denverno case, be a leader, read the depositions, fire Shaner, fire Fragamenti, fire Grind, and fire DeCreasy. Is it because you're afraid of his retaliation, just like other parents in our community? But somehow Shaner was able to get away with screaming at Jessica Opfer for someone else's use of language. You tell me how that makes sense, because it doesn't. You, Shaner,
Please direct your comments
was hostile,
to the
degrading,
board.
and unnecessary. You are not a leader.
Stephanie, please
You know
direct
what?
your comments
Take your
to the board.
gavel and give it back to Kevin like I care.
Stephanie.
So I am talking.
Stephanie.
Stop interrupting me.
Stephanie.
And your tone
I would
was
like
hostile,
everyone
degrading, and
speaking tonight to
unnecessary.
have a
You are
chance
not
to
a
speak.
leader. You accused her of spreading misinformation, and she did not. She stated the total summary amounts available in FOIA and public documents. You can compartmentalize these numbers all you want, but the total is what the taxpayer sees. Shame on you. We have 3 minutes to speak.
Let's sit down.
We have 3 minutes to speak. You have all night if you choose. Do you not see that reality? Many of us are nervous and worried about what we ourselves said, but we are supposed to police the speech of one word by one person in one sentence. That makes no sense at all. You have a lot of nerve talking to any person, much less anybody who is a taxpayer in the Rochester Community School District, and I'll tell you this, if you ever speak like that to me, it'll be the last time you do.
Next comment.
And in the middle of your
Next
temper
comment.
tantrum, you have removed both your hearing aids. Oh, you know what?
I'm going to call for a recess. I'm going to call for a recess. Please address your comments to the board, not to individual board members, the superintendent, or other school district employees or members of the audience. We want to give everyone a chance to speak. Everyone gets 3 minutes. Thank you for following the rules.
I'm a parent and a taxpayer, and what I'm about to read is from an anonymous parent in the district. I am writing today regarding a language arts class that my daughter is taking at Adams High School. Given the current climate and culture at RCS, I feel that I cannot speak out on my own for fear of retaliation, either against myself or my daughter. She is taking a class called True Stories. This is a one-semester language arts class elective offered at the high school. As you can surmise from the name, the books are all nonfiction. The RCS course description catalog states that options in this class include Educated, a memoir by a woman who overcomes her survivalist upbringing in the mountains of Idaho, and Just Mercy, a novel about a black man who was wrongly accused of murder. Imagine our shock when our daughter shared that her next book was going to be The 57 Bus. This is a novel about a transgender teen who was the victim of a hate crime. Multiple things about this choice were shocking. One being that before even receiving the book, the teacher spent 2 days reviewing transgenderism, pronouns, and microaggressions. Another shocking aspect was that a parental signature was not required prior to reading this book. How many times have we as parents needed to sign off on a book to read in class? Classic example, I had to sign off on To Kill a Mockingbird because they say the N-word. This book also contains the N-word, along with other shocking dialogue. However, a signature was not required. A good example of this dialogue is when one character said to another, "Let me suck your prick." Nice language for a reading in school, right? Another shocking fact is that this class did not have a syllabus distributed at the beginning of the semester. Do you know when the syllabus was made available? One day after parents complained and screenshots of the transgender class content was posted on Facebook. My daughter is not the only one in the class who is not comfortable with this book. In fact, most, if not all, students have either voiced or demonstrated through body language that they didn't want to read this book. This was confirmed when a brave student recorded a class and posted it to YouTube. You can hear the students push back on the teacher when she is trying to push her woke agenda on them. Funny enough, the day after the video was posted, the students were told that under no circumstances may they have their phones out. They also had to have a new seating assignment. What are the teachers afraid of? If they aren't doing anything wrong, then why do the students have to put their phones away?
Thank you. Thank you for your
When one
comments.
student asked who was
Time's
responsible.
up. We need to be respectful of the next speaker. Kim.
My name is Kim Kelly, and I'm the parent of a high schooler in our Rochester Community Schools. I feel compelled to speak tonight after witnessing the behavior of
Just
some
one
speakers.
second, Kim, just one
Yes.
second. Can we reset the clock? Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, go ahead, sorry.
I feel compelled to speak tonight after witnessing the behavior of some of the speakers at the last few meetings. We don't accept bullying from children, so why would we accept it from adults who feel shouting, name-calling, and threats are appropriate methods of communication? This board and the RCS administration have the responsibility to ensure our kids get an excellent education. They don't serve to cater to the whim of every parent, even those who choose to go to war when their every demand isn't met. I firmly believe that our children are given every opportunity to succeed because of the leadership of this board and Dr. Shaner. I challenge our community to verify the information you hear about the district before passing judgment, and know that for some the truth can be inconvenient when executing a personal vendetta. Ask yourself if you wish to be associated with people who use children to secretly gather evidence to further their personal agenda. I challenge our community to clearly identify their affiliation with RCS when speaking to the board and news outlets. If our schools aren't good enough for your own children, then you forfeit the right to dictate what they teach their students. The sheer arrogance of someone deciding that they know what's best, not only for their children, but for all children, astounds me. Yes, we all pay taxes, but the primary stakeholders have a vested interest in seeing the district succeed because our kids go to school here. If you do have a student in the district, please understand that the experience of a third grader is worlds different than that of a high schooler, and until you've parented one, you have no idea what that experience is like. You have the right to disallow your child from taking an elective class with subject matter that makes you uncomfortable, but you don't have the right to decide that no one else can study that topic. You have the right to limit the book. But none of those things matter if we don't have amazing teachers, and when they decide they've had enough of being secretly recorded and verbally abused by parents, who will be left to teach our children? Our teachers and administrators deserve our support. I invite our community to ask questions and learn from our students what diversity, equity, and inclusion means to them, and how different their world would be if those initiatives were stripped away. Ask a high schooler if they enjoy the chance to study topics examining the basic civil rights of all humans. These kids are going out in the world in a few short years, and it's our responsibility as parents to ensure they have the tools to thrive, including empathy and respect for those who may take a different path than ours on the journey of life. I offer my continued support and profound gratitude to this board and administration for always putting students first and for their active role in helping them succeed.
Good evening. My name is Gail Martin. I retired in 2018 after 31 years of teaching in Rochester schools. I've lived in the district for over 30 years with my husband. Both of my children have gone to Rochester schools. We know there's a group of people who are angry with the board over several ongoing issues. Some of their anger over some of these issues is probably justified. But I'm here tonight to speak about just one issue: the call to remove books from our libraries. This one isn't about disagreements among adults over policy. This is an attack against our students and their First Amendment rights, against our educators, and against our public school system. The claim against the books is that they are sexually explicit, even pornographic or obscene. They are not obscene. In Miller v. California, the Supreme Court established a three-pronged test to determine whether material was obscene based on the value of the book as a whole. As none of the challenged books meet any of these criteria, they are not obscene and are therefore protected speech under the First Amendment. In Island Trees School District versus Pico, the Supreme Court ruled that school districts must abide by the First Amendment. Justice Brennan wrote, quote, "Local school boards may not remove books from school library shelves simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books and seek by their removal to prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion," end quote. Districts can remove books for pedagogical reasons, but no pedagogical reasons to remove the books have been offered, only claims of personal opinion that they are sexually explicit. Moreover, these challenges are not happening in a vacuum. The exact books are being challenged across the U.S. as part of a politically motivated attempt to manufacture controversies that undermine trust in public schools. These controversies are based on two false narratives. The first is about parents' rights. Parents here say they just want the right to decide what their children read, but they already do have that right. They can opt their children out of reading any book, even if it is assigned, which these are not. The second false narrative is that schools are trying to indoctrinate students. But again, no one is making kids read these books, and indoctrination doesn't happen by osmosis. In fact, the first step to indoctrination isn't providing access to ideas, it's eliminating access to ideas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Shaner and Board of Ed members. My name is Debbie Jones. I am an Adams graduate with one child that has graduated and one that is at Rochester High School. First, I want to add something to what I was going to say, and that is a thank you for moving us to this building. You did it so people didn't have to stand at the board office, and you moved the time so we don't all have to be here till midnight. Thank you for that. I have been a PTA board member for 13 years in the elementary, middle, and high schools, a rah-rah executive board member, a first grade Sunday school teacher, Boy Scout leader, Girl Scout leader. I am currently on the board of the Rochester Auburn Hills Community Coalition, the chairman of the board of Rochester Area Youth Assistants, and the president of Rochester High School's Athletic Boosters. I'm not sharing this to get accolades, as I have gotten many of those over the years. The point I am making is that I am a very active community member. I have worked closely with the teachers, the administration, the students, and the parents, as well as community members. I am saddened and disgusted by the movement to tear down our leaders that have made this school district what it is. RCS is a top 10 school district with the honor of having the 2020 Superintendent of the Year and Teacher of the Year. The Board of Ed and this leadership have accomplished so much, including the passage of the sinking fund in 2019, the opening of Karen Steps, and the launch of the transitional kindergarten program, the purposeful and explicit focus on diversity and inclusion, the addition of an orchestra program, the launch of a summer learning academy, the addition of the AP capstone diplomas, the rollout of a one-to-one device program, not to mention all the awards and honors that have been received. There is a buzzword being used a lot right now, transparency. How is there not transparency when parents are included in committees like the 2020 Strategic Planning Committee, the Health Advisory Board, the Committee to decide about weighted grades, the analysis of whether or not to have exams given, and the Legacy Committee for that building, which I am also a member of? Parents were included in the very first meeting and continue to be included in diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the Board of Ed meetings, the public is allowed to talk with more public comment time than any other district in our area. We have been spoiled, and now these meetings have become about the parents and not about the work of the Board of Ed. There is so much anger and hatred, and we, the silent majority, are sick of it. The lying and harassment has to stop. The secret taping has to stop. The posting of personal information about staff members have to stop. The posting of a video from October just to harass the leadership is sickening. We will not let the haters destroy this successful district. We honor you for your work that you have done. We look forward to what is to come. Thank you for your service.
My name is Christina Fleming, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the children of Rochester Community Schools. Specifically, I'm here to offer a different perspective in regards to the battle of the books. I am well aware that bad things happen to kids. I was sexually molested as a child, one time as young as a kindergartner. And when I look at the over-sexualized books, especially George, which is in our elementary schools, I don't feel happy that my story is represented. I feel victimized all over again. The over-sexualized books are triggers, and I don't say that lightly or for dramatic effect here tonight. I'm a 54-year-old woman with the tools and the maturity to process my experiences, and I have physical and emotional reactions. I feel panic, my hands shake, and I feel sad. A child's brain is not fully developed until the age of 25, so if a child has experienced what I have experienced, multiply that by 10, and it will be with them for life, trust me. These books could be adding to the mental health crisis that we are trying to avoid. The law, for whatever reason, has provided an exemption for schools and school libraries to provide sexually explicit material unless it's harmful. I know it is harmful, and I don't need the law to tell me what is morally right or wrong. Whoever turned Anne Frank in during the Holocaust followed the law. That family that protected Anne Frank, they broke the law. A Supreme Court ruling, I don't need that either. A judge said in the Supreme Court that he will know it when he sees it, and I don't need them to tell me. I know when I see it. Being a supporter of diversity and inclusion, I did reach out to some of my friends in the LGBTQ+ community because I wanted their insights on these books as well. My male friend, whose trauma was being beat up every day in school for being gay, said that schools need to teach inclusion, tolerance, acceptance, and how to have safe sex with condoms. But pornography, his words, not mine, had no place in schools. My transgender woman friend had a similar conclusion. She did agree that queer community is highly sexualized and that gay romance in books are good, but graphic displays are bad, and with a caveat that she does need to see each book, which is fair because we want to see each book. But then our conversation turned. She does a lot of charity work in downtown Detroit because a majority of them become prostitutes. Her words, not mine. She thinks that we should legalize prostitution so that women have bodily autonomy. I did not disagree with her work, but my initial reaction was, really? Is that it? And if I'm being honest, I got mad for our kids. What happened to wanting to be a doctor, a lawyer, a mechanic, a nurse, an astronaut, or a librarian? So we circle back around to the books, and where I feel victimized, those same books are normalizing behaviors potentially for others. And I'm not trying to get into a debate about grooming, but really it did make me think. So I asked her, is this the best that we can do for your community to represent them? Her trauma as a child was being a boy in the locker room and listening to how boys talk about girls. So we ended our conversation on this. This is about humanity. Kids should be taught how to treat each other, how to behave. We should be setting expectations. Our future men should be taught how to treat women. Our future women need to have bodily autonomy.
Thank you.
Hidden sexual messages have no place in our schools. We should be protecting our children.
Next we
and
have
should be setting
Patricia
standards.
Kane, followed by Victoria Phelps.
I don't know why I took my cell phone up when I don't have pockets. I already expressed my thoughts about this specific school, the steps that school administrators should take against the call to ban books in a letter to the Board of Education. This speech is for those who have called for the removal of books, to stand against that. I grew up in the Rochester Community School District. I went to North Hill and Hart, and I graduated in Stony Creek in 2014, so not terribly long ago, but I'm currently pursuing, or I finished my Bachelor of Arts in English Literature, and I'm currently pursuing my Master's of Library and Information Science. I moved back to Rochester Hills after some time away last year. But I grew up in Rochester 20 plus years. So my mom was a teacher, and my parents have worked hard to protect me from harmful materials growing up. And every kid is different, but I didn't encounter scenes of violence, profanities, and sexuality in literature before I was mature enough to handle it. I did, however, encounter those scenes from the internet, even with heavily filtered and restricted access, and from my classmates at school who definitely talk like the characters in a lot of the challenged books, even 8 some years ago. I did not talk with my parents about most of these things because I felt ashamed and uncomfortable approaching the subjects with them. Now I'm on the path to becoming a librarian because I believe that our stories have incredible power to develop our local communities and bring us together in an increasingly polarized and divided nation. So I'm sad, but I'm not altogether surprised to see my hometown grappling now with a challenge to books that some residents would like to see banned from our school district. I'm not surprised because last year, the American Library Association reported a 4-fold increase on book challenges across the country, largely due to efforts of certain political groups, as Gail mentioned. Lately, it's common to hear challenged books decried as pornography, although this is a misapplication of the term. It is common for challengers to say that they're not calling for a ban, even though the government removal of challenged materials is definitionally a ban. Yes, even if it's requested by parents. Yes, even if the books are available at your public libraries. There is nothing new to this, and we know how this story ends. The courts have historically overwhelmingly opposed these book bans in schools. I'm happy to engage in a good faith dialogue. I hope people come talk with me about the court cases, about how librarians make selection decisions, which is not something we do lightly, about the books in question, about what the authors themselves have to say in defense of their books, because many of them have heard the arguments that are already being said here tonight. A study conducted just last month found that after hearing arguments from both sides, a majority of voters and parents oppose efforts to remove books from school libraries just because some parents find them offensive or inappropriate. As an information professional, I'm happy to conduct thorough research, snuff out misinformation, and prevent school administrators from making hasty decisions on poor information. Because as government officials, board members and school staff must tread very carefully in how they respond to challenges to avoid infringing on First Amendment rights.
My name is Austin Edwards, and I'm a resident, and I am appalled by some of the books here at RCS. They have scenes of pornographic, incestuous rape. They show abducted women being forcibly married and molested by their abductors. They condone rapists by making women marry them under the threat of death. They intimately describe two lovers' genitals and their sexual intercourse, and some even valorize protagonists with multiple wives and others who have extramarital sex. Are these the family values that we want taught to our children? Do we want our children to be exposed to this kind of grooming? I don't. All of these books I just listed are, of course, books of the Bible. The Bible is in RCS, and I firmly believe we should ban the Bible. See how silly that sounds? I am an atheist activist, thank you, and every fiber of my being wants to ban the Bible from RCS. Few other books have encouraged people to kill millions, to rape little boys, to slaughter indigenous populations, and sexually indoctrinate children. But I am more mature than that. I understand that you cannot judge a book only by the parts of it. You have to take it for the whole book. I know that it can be dishonest and reductive to boil the Bible down to only its most graphic parts and whine to a board of education that it be banned. Yet this is what a small minority of parents in our community are doing, to 18 or 19 books and counting. They have a whole sheet on which ones. Let's imagine for a moment that these parents get their way. I want them to think long and hard about what their win allows me to do to their cherished books, using the exact same criteria of sexually explicit and not age appropriate. These parents should be incredibly lucky that I do not share their values. And they should be lucky that I believe that children are able to handle tough topics. I'm going to let them in on a secret. Daily, children are killed and sexually assaulted. They do drugs, bully each other. Children are gay and trans, and they swear a lot. And they talk about and engage in sexual activity. I know this because I was a child not so long ago. I endured my peers. I was offered drugs. I was confronted with death, and I was exposed to and engaged in sexual activity. It was books, attentive authority figures, and long, hard talks that got me through, not being sheltered. Look, if your child can handle reading about Lot's daughters raping him while he's drunk, they can handle reading about a teenage girl being raped on drugs and Tilt, by the way. Use your common sense. Don't ban books. If you feel differently, please come talk to me after the meeting.
Hi, my name is Meredith McCormack. I have 2 children in the district. Well-functioning communities almost always have strong leaders at the helm, people who lead by example with honesty and integrity, not through fear and intimidation. In the absence of effective leadership, however, a void is created. This void is unsettling, and people will naturally try to fill it with whatever they can, creating noise and confusion and division. This is what is happening right now in this district, and put very simply, I believe we are lacking good leadership and our community is suffering for it. Tonight, we ask you, our elected Board of Education, to help move us forward on a path of healing. And when I say we, I refer to the 1,021 citizens and counting who came together and signed the petition that I'm about to present to you. This petition asks for 3 things. First, we ask that you hold district administration responsible for their betrayal of public trust. Second, we ask for the rapid implementation of an anti-retaliation protocol like the one presented last month by the only Board of Education member with the courage to speak up thus far. And finally, we ask for an independent investigation into potential ethics violations at the district level. This petition recognizes your volunteerism and the challenges associated with your position, while simultaneously asking you to step up to the plate and move us past this difficult time with a series of thoughtful and reasonable requests. Let the actual content of this petition and the 1,021 signatures on it put to rest the false narrative that everybody who criticizes the district is simply a vocal minority of screaming parents who are just having difficulty coping with the after effects of the pandemic. On the contrary, we are primarily, the people who signed this petition, lifelong supporters of public education who are devastated by the far-reaching consequence of a years-long top-down culture of intimidation tactics and transparency issues, and we desperately want our community to get past this. Please do not ignore these 1,021 voices this time. This has been going on for far too long, and we need your help. As the designated recipient of this petition, Change.org has alerted President Beers of its existence. He can view it online at his convenience. Since he's not here tonight, I will follow up with him later this week via email. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Loheed. I'm a teacher at Stony Creek High School. I've been an RCS teacher for 24 years, and I'm proud to have spent the last 20 at Stony Creek. I teach U.S. history and 12th grade composition. I'm here tonight to represent my students and to support their freedom to read and choose books for themselves. Choice reading is a requirement in my class. Reading is an essential, lifelong skill that I believe in nurturing now so students reap the benefits later. In my class, we set reading goals, do book tastings in the media center, choose books, have reading time in class, keep track of progress, and then have conferences at the end of the semester. Tonight I want to share with you some of the notes I took from those reading conferences at the end of this first semester. Here are just a few of the things that my students shared with me. My favorite goal I set was to read a book with my dad. Reading was my me time. Some unexpected things happened this semester, and reading helped me deal with them. This class got me back into reading. I'm proud of that one. I read with my mom at night. I read the book my dad wrote. He'd been wanting me to read it. It was good, which was a relief. Reading was hard for me as a kid. I struggled with comprehension, but choosing books I like without assignments helped. I talked with my friends about books I was reading. Did you know reading is trending? She actually said that to me. Reading is trending. This class was a big change for me. Now I know what I like to read. I'm proud of what I did. I found my groove. I want to add reading as a regular thing. I feel a lot better when I read, much better than looking at screens. I asked for a book for Christmas. I've never done that, but I wanted to read this book, and you said we could read anything. I read 15 books this semester, and I was not even a reader before. And then I got this one a lot. I used to not really be a big reader. I didn't really see myself as a reader. I'm not here to debate the motivations behind any challenged book. I'm a teacher, and some of the community members here tonight are parents of my students. I don't want to insult them or their choices they make for their children. But what I do want to remind everyone in this room of is this. As public school educators and experts in the content and the craft of teaching, we have to consider what every student needs. Parents should and must look out for the needs of their own children, but it is my responsibility in my classroom and my school to ensure that every student has the chance to see themselves as a reader, much like some of my seniors found. They deserve the chance to choose books they enjoy, books they see themselves in, books that challenge them, and yes, books that open their minds to different perspectives and experiences. On one last personal note, to all the parents and community members listening, we are doing the best we can. Teachers don't have the time nor the inclination to indoctrinate anyone. We're too busy trying to get them to put their phones away. We care very much about your children, and this includes doing our small part to help them grow to be successful, responsible, thriving readers. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Manhire, and in this current environment of identities and labels, I guess I should tell you, I identify as a cogent adult. I am aware my age, knowledge, and experiences are not typical for all parents with children in this district, but they are some of my identifiers nonetheless. I am a parent of 3 children in this district whom each possess an IEP in support of their educational experience. This has made me view public education through a microscope for the 17+ years I have been part of the system. I'm not new, therefore, to advocacy, nor the struggles to exist within a system set up to serve children, yet consistently fails short of doing so more often than not. I have worked thoughtfully and cooperatively in all instances with staff who met me with the same. There are many issues I advocate for in many different arenas, but I come to you before you tonight to bring forth 2 local concerns that I have. The first is what I'll talk about now is the deterioration of respect between RCS, parents, and community members in communications with one another through the overt disregard for a parent's right to be an active part in our children's education. So how did we get to this juncture? How is it so that so many feel these same concerns? I feel the negative effects resulting from too long adults in this community prioritizing fear over facts, bureaucracy over people, politics over laws, and agendas over reality have produced for us a culture of contempt for one another. Contempt exists only where there is no respect. How have we come to this place in a community which has so much to be grateful for and ought to be bringing us together, yet appears to be driving us apart? Where has the respect for one another gone? I fear it's been lost to the numerous examples of hypocrisy, unprofessional behaviors exhibited, and unethical decisions made by those in power in this district. If the district can act with such disrespect for the parents without any accountability, why is it a surprise when they are met with similarly low levels of respect from some of the parents? Those who believe the many improper actions of the district not being important enough to hold those responsible accountable defend the wrongdoing of those people by pointing fingers with emotional opinions instead of focusing on the real issue at hand. Those who believe these things to be important enough to hold those responsible accountable are speaking out, using all the systems put in place to do so, using facts to support their concerns, sometimes even bearing their families' emotional struggles as evidence. And yet, we have been seemingly all grouped together in a pool of not adults rightfully exercising their First Amendment rights.
Hi, I'm Emily Summer. I'm a Rochester High parent and a former district employee. The only time I've ever been troubled by a book my son has brought home from the school library was 9 years ago when he was a first grader. He showed up with a book that was written in the mid-'80s about life in the Soviet Union. And we were pretty sure that there were other things in that library that might be more interesting to him as a new reader. So we wrote a note back to his teacher. He got to take a new trip to the library. He came home with a really great book about snakes. And we were all really happy. We didn't even have to yell at the librarian and accuse her of indoctrinating him into communism or anything. We just asked for a new book. Right there, that's about the level of activism I'm usually comfortable with. But I signed up to speak today because, well, I have objections to other parents interfering with my son's access to library books and my ability to help him make those choices. And I have objections to dangerous messages that these particular challenges send to other students in our district. Look, I'm totally on board with parents speaking up for their own kids. They know their needs and their values, but very clearly, their values are not mine, and they don't have the right to tell my son that he can't check out a book that they don't like. I'm really grateful that the district has decided on a review process that includes people who are experts in youth literature and child development, and that looks at the merit of these texts as a whole. That process, however, should include leaving books available to students until a final decision has been reached. Removing books from circulation while they're being evaluated is a really easy way to deny students access to books with even the most frivolous challenges. I've also heard the claim that removing certain books protects students, but I'd argue that it does the opposite. You know, one of the roles of our school libraries is as a refuge. It's the safe place in the building for kids who don't feel seen or comfortable, who are marginalized, who are from underrepresented groups. And the books that have been targeted here in our community and across the nation by book banners everywhere are books about these kids or by adults who were these kids. They're mostly books about gay, trans, minority characters, books about surviving oppression or abuse. What message are we as a district sending when we tell students that stories about people like them are not welcome or that they are dangerous to other students? If a parent thinks those stories are not right for their child, fine, they can protect them by refusing, but they should not be allowed to erase other children's experiences or label their identities or tell my student he can't check them out for himself.
Thank you for your comments.
Time. Hi, I'm Carol Beth Litcooey, and I have 2 kids in the district. I'm wondering, when will our Board of Education address the acts of bullying and retaliation going on in our district? Last meeting, Joe Patel suggested voting on his anti-retaliation policy. I appreciate his efforts to listen and notice that action is needed, something I haven't witnessed from a board member since I began asking for help last year. However, Barbara Ness did point out that we already have policies in place. If we have policies, but they aren't being followed, our system is broken. This is why we need new leadership. Unless there are consequences for bad actions, and unless the board enforces their policies, they don't protect us. We need accountability. Administrators have bullied parents. They violate FOIA law by denying information exists or charging exorbitant fees. They allow building leaks and mold to go unaddressed for years in our K through 12 buildings. I do appreciate we're finally getting around to Longmeadow. They give administrators 10 to 12% raises, but only 1% raises for teachers. Parapros are leaving our district because their wages are less than fast food workers. And advanced classes are being removed from course offerings behind our backs and against parents' and students' wishes. Whatever happened with middle school advanced language arts? Back in February, I thought we had a productive first meeting with some administrators, but since then, no one will respond to us. In the meeting, we shared a community survey containing the views of over 500 Rochester parents, students, and some staff. According to our survey, the overwhelming majority of people desire these classes to return. Our survey, coupled with the district's video about advanced language arts, was the only tangible data from our community given to us about this decision. Both pieces of evidence seemed to debunk rationales used for removing the class, like that it was causing undue stress on students, or that students were feeling labeled. I'm also befuddled by the rationale that claims advanced classes cause inequity for students. I'm very concerned about how the word equity is being used here. Equity should mean fairness, and it shouldn't be misused as a reason to remove opportunities from students. I would have loved the chance to question this after that district equity statement, because I don't see that being addressed. We've tried to work with you constructively, but you've ignored us. And this is why people are upset. Because not only do administrators have a penchant for getting caught up in scandals and violating parents' rights, but it seems they've abandoned some of the fundamental reasons why you should work in education in the first place. This is personal to me. I was a teacher. Some applaud you for simply showing up and sitting in these chairs. It doesn't matter if you allow corruption. It doesn't matter if you're unresponsive to a wide variety of concerns from this community. But let's be honest. If you don't have the integrity to follow through, to stand up for what's right despite social pressure, then you'd probably be better off finding alternative volunteer work. Because we need to hold this administration accountable for the sake of our kids.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa. I just want to start out with a quote. The quote goes, "It's okay to admit what you don't know. It's okay to ask for help. And it's more than okay to listen to the people you lead. In fact, it's essential." And I found that earlier today. It's Mary Barra, CEO of GM. So I just wanted to share that because I feel like we've gotten to a place in the community where people respect individuals that are able to say they made a mistake and to say, hey, let's find a way to make things better. And I feel like even tonight, it's really interesting, just you can feel it. I didn't have this written down, but you can just feel the tension in the atmosphere. And I really think we can come to a place where we can work together and learn from each other and grow through some of the situations that have happened. So I do think it would be worth hearing apologies with some of the things that happened with monitoring social media accounts. So that's my takeaway with the quote. Additionally, I'm here tonight to talk about a few of the things that I see as critical areas for RCS success. Building trust, making logical decisions, viewing parents as allies and not enemies. When people have an opposing viewpoint, I've always thought that that shouldn't be viewed as threatening, but rather it can be viewed as an opportunity to either strengthen your own position or maybe even change your position. Either of those are two good options and can show the benefits of stakeholders speaking up. Today, of those three areas, I really want to focus on parents being allies when it comes to making sound and logical financial decisions, which we've heard a little bit about today, but not a lot, so this is fun. I get to talk about something different. So the majority of parents I've spoken with have listened to these meetings and genuinely want to help the district succeed and are extremely thankful for the teachers in our district. Parents want their taxpayer dollars to support their children's schools and children's teachers. Parents want logical financial decisions to be made, and in a day and age where so much can be done remotely, especially for a district that was remote for a long time during COVID, it calls into question why we're spending such a large amount of money and such a large physical footprint on a building on the outskirts of our district, especially when we have school buildings that are in need of repair. But thank you for updating on some of the repairs that are in the works. Additionally, speaking of funding, it's been brought to the community's attention that the administration has received a much greater percentage increase in salary over the teachers and parapros? Why is the administration giving such a disproportionately large raise when the teachers haven't received the same level of pay increases? Our teachers and parapros really are the foundation of our schools. How can you justify the value of the administration deserving a pay raise of approximately 6 to 12% when teachers are getting approximately 1%? This is what I've been told. So I urge the board and administration to rethink the spending of our taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jessica Opfer, and I have 2 children in the district. I didn't spend a whole lot of time preparing a formal speech tonight. It doesn't seem to matter how much time and effort I spend writing letters, doing my research, putting thought and care into my words. It doesn't matter whether I speak respectfully and civilly or raise my voice in anger and frustration, which frankly I actually have never done. It doesn't matter because the response is the same. Over the years, I've shared this podium with many other parents who have also spoken respectfully and civilly, who have done their research and asked thoughtful questions. The fact that we've all gotten up to speak does not mean we all share the same views as we've seen tonight. Far from it. We're all individuals from different walks of life, from different points on the political spectrum. I've heard parents speak about literacy, gifted programs, advanced courses, smaller class sizes, teacher and parapro wages, later school start times, bullying, safety, social emotional wellness, diversity and equity, building maintenance, and yes, even major financial decisions like buying buildings. These are all legitimate issues. As parents and taxpayers and stakeholders, we have the right to question the district's decisions, but most importantly, we have the right to be involved in the process by which those decisions are made. These are issues that deserve discussion and debate in an open public forum, two-way discussion and debate. And for every parent that has gotten up here to speak on these issues and others, you can bet there are hundreds more behind the scenes who feel the same way, but for whatever reason are fearful of standing at this podium themselves. And rightfully so, because what happens when we do put ourselves out there? What do we hear? At best, we get, "Thank you for your feedback. We're the experts. We know what we're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. We don't need you," and pretty much go away. Most of the time, we don't get any response at all. And in the worst cases, we've been lied to, we've been bullied, we've been intimidated, and we've been retaliated against. And that includes staff who have reached out to people like me to say thank you. And it happens almost every day. And these aren't disgruntled employees, they are people who you care about. These are people teaching in our district that you all care about. This is supposed to be a safe space for us to share our perspectives, our thoughts and concerns, and yes, even our criticisms. A handful of disrespectful or rude parents do not speak for us all, and the rest of us are not responsible for the behavior of a few. But even when we speak respectfully, we do not feel heard, so the frustration grows and grows and grows. And give me a few extra seconds because I had to pause for a minute there. If even the people who advocate respectfully and calmly are shut out and make no progress, the fault does not lie with the parents, but with an administration and board who ignore all but those who offer only praise and accolades.
Thank you.
If
Time's
up.
up.
You know what?
Next is Kristen Kennedy,
No,
followed by Lisa Hubbard.
Listen to me. I'm speaking respectfully, and you do not follow your own rules. So why should we have to?
So the rules are 3 minutes, and that is so that everyone has a chance to speak.
But you don't follow your own policies.
Kristen Kennedy is next, followed by Lisa Hubbard.
We are supposed to feel safe, valued, and respected here.
Jessica, please sit down. Next up is
I've never
Kristen
done
Kennedy.
this before, but
Kristen
I'm
Kennedy.
supposed to be following your rules. I'm asking you
Jessica,
to follow
please
your
sit down.
own. Please.
We have given everyone 3 minutes, and that is what the rule is. Please sit down.
But you are not following your own
Next up
rules,
is Kristen
and that's
Kennedy,
what I'm asking you to do.
followed by Lisa.
My
Okay, we're going to take a
children
recess.
laugh now.
We're going to take a recess.
At the respect code, okay?
Good evening. I'm Dave. Nice to see you. I'm here today with the topic of the day, our books, which you've called educational material. Was that the phrase that we used? My question is, what type of education are we providing to our children with that type of material? If it's not indoctrination, then what is it? What are we teaching them about? Now, I'm a pretty old-fashioned guy. I have, I'm married to one woman. I have 4 children that are living today, one of which attends your high school, Stony Creek. My other children I have unenrolled and put into private at tremendous cost. And I did so out of distrust with the school district. Now, I'm old-fashioned as well in regards to sexuality. I don't view pornography. I'm certain many of you do, and you enjoy it very much. Maybe some of you are pedophiles. I'm not sure. I won't tolerate material like that in my home. My expectation is that you would not allow it to my children's eyes and to their impressionable hearts and minds. I don't think it's out of line to question it. And I ain't asking y'all to teach the Bible in school. That would be you going out of your lane. Well, I got news for you. You're going out of your lane today. You're trying to teach a sexual ethic to children. I'm their father. That's my job. And I'm their father. It's my job to teach them morality. I will read them the scriptures. That's not your job. I'm asking that you stay in your lane and out of my lane. I'm the authority in my home. I was told that I'm the first parent to object to these materials in the school, educational materials. I'm the first. We all know that's not true. I'm the last. Other parents woke me up. I thought board meetings were for nerds, and it's boring crap that you don't want to go to. So I always deleted the emails. I read them now. I read the one that you sent that said, go through the official process. I did. And I'm going to be watching. And I will not tolerate pornography in our schools. And I ask that you all get a backbone and you stand. And you stand for what's right. These books, some of you were in the Facebook post. You're reading books in the classroom. That's awesome. I read books in the classroom as a surprise parent. Then you help with the meeting or the...
Thank you for your comments. Time's up. Next commenter
real
is...
quick, last thought, real quick, I promise.
Please be respectful of everyone else who's speaking.
Real quick, I promise. If these materials would not be read in that classroom by you, they do not belong in the school.
Time's up. Thank you.
Period.
My name is Jeanette House, and I'm here as a parent of two students at Rochester High School and an alumni, and as a concerned citizen. I am speaking to show my support and gratitude to RCS. I've been involved as a parent volunteer in the classroom and in various PTA roles. Our board members are duly elected officials who are volunteering their time to perform a civic duty to our community and are getting harassed and threatened. As a member of this community, I find it appalling and hard to tolerate this level of bullying and threatening behavior. It needs to stop. I'm saddened to see this kind of shameful behavior from my fellow citizens and question the example that is being set for our kids because they are watching. I'm going to read a letter written by Molly Cumbalus, who is a fellow concerned community member and who invited like-minded citizens to sign this letter. It has been submitted to the board and signed by hundreds of parents. Dear all, we're writing today to say enough is enough. We've not always been happy with every decision our central office or our Board of Education has made, and there are issues facing our district that concern us now. But right now, what concerns us most is the abuse you all have had to endure these last several months. We're writing to show our support. We believe you all to be good and decent educators and public servants, and we have yet to meet anyone who goes into public education with the goal of screwing a community, its families, the kids, to put it bluntly. After the last meeting, We're getting fearful that you're all getting close to a breaking point, and we hope that isn't the case. So please know that you have someone in your corner, and there are other someones in this community too. The loud and aggressive are not the majority. We'd like decorum, respect, and kindness to be brought back now. But while we wait for that, please know that the loudest group is not always the largest group. Thank you.
Amy Ackerman, I have one graduated from the district and two currently in the district. First of all, I want to start this isn't about one instance. This is about this Board of Education and the superintendent doing unethical things to our community. The fact that we're in this room and this board and superintendent have done what they've done to community members and parents is unimaginable. It's unimaginable on a professional level and on a moral and ethical level. There's no justifiable reason to call a parent's employer. None. And this group of people didn't just do this once. They decided to contact multiple employers of parents and community members. This was their solution to handling people who disagree with them. This is not ethical. This is not leadership. How can this be the representation of who we are as a district? That's not who I am as a parent. I know that's not who a lot of people are in this room. And I know a lot of the people in this district are not like that. No one would do that. No one would do that. They're professionals. They're community members. They love their community members. This board and superintendent do nothing exceptional. We have become followers of trends. When our kids were being kept home because of a virus, many parents begged this district to be leaders. Showed the state how our acclaimed and exceptional district utilized the community and our resources to get our students in the classroom, back in the classroom. But they didn't. They sat back fearfully and passively and watched everyone else go back in person while we were the last district. Instead, our district was watching social media, sending out cease and desist letters, and calling employers. I'm going to skip a little something because I just want, with all the book conversation, I'm going to read a little excerpt that we have from one of the books. Sorry, I'm switching gears a little bit. This is in one of our high schools, just so you're aware. He reached his hand down and pulled out my dick. He quickly went to giving me head. I just sat back and enjoyed it, as I could tell he was too. He was also definitely experienced in what he was doing because he went to work quite confidently. He then came up and asked me if I wanted to try on him. I said, sure. I began, and he said, watch your teeth. There was so much excitement running through my body. This was much more than losing my virginity. His body felt great in my mouth. We both got up and went into his bedroom, where he got completely naked. He took off his clothes and immediately lay on his stomach. I then took off my shirt and then my boxer briefs. I got behind him. There was a moonlight coming through the shades of the dark room. Two black boys under the glow of the blue moonlight. How poetic. You then took off your shorts, followed by your boxers. There you stood in front of me, fully erect, and said, taste it. At first, I laughed and refused, but then you said, come on, Matt, taste it. This is what boys like us do when we like each other. The whole time I knew this was wrong, not because I was having sexual intercourse with a guy, because you were my family. I'll let you make your own judgment on if something like this is acceptable for your students to read. It's not for mine, and God's honest, my kids won't read this, and we talk to them about this. But there are kids out there whose parents don't pay attention to what they're reading, and this is what they're going to get.
Thank you. Michelle Glazer.
Thank you for having me. Barbara Barber. I'm here to talk about the administration building, and I was on the Legacy Committee, and I'm glad that we are going to have an opportunity to weigh in a little bit more on the decisions for the Legacy Committee. But one thing that I would like to read is the RFP process that was put together. The consensus of the Legacy Committee was that everyone agreed preservation is priority. Yet the RFP did strongly market a 4.43 acre parcel of land. The Legacy Committee held lengthy group conversations about making the RFP public, posting the RFP on the school website, social media sharing, and there were multiple lists of potential agencies to send the RFP to outreach efforts of other universities, businesses, nonprofits, trade schools, entrepreneurs interested in investing in a historic building for the benefit of the greater Rochester community. And however, instead, that goal was replaced with having to write the attorneys, Collins and Blehe, to receive a hard copy. When we found out about this at the last minute, we said, that's not right. This is supposed to be posted on the website. and we received written instructions from Lori Grain not to share the RFP with anyone because it brings great cause for concern to share the RFP. When the Legacy Committee did also not agree to the $20 million in renovation costs that were stated by Rochester Community Schools hired architects, King Scott and Associates. We did not feel that that was an accurate representation, but that $20 million figure was included in the RFP. This is another area of concern over transparency, is because from the public outside of the Legacy Committee, we were addressed by many people who said that that amount was purposely made higher to give the appearance of a savings when compared to spending the $10 million with renovations for the replacement building, the Letica building. Since there's a perception that this may have been stacking the deck in one's favor, we wanted to be as transparent as possible. We also requested that there would be open house site walks for anyone who was interested in putting a bid on the building. Those were not given. No one was offered an open house site walk with the RFP. It's helpful for organizations when you're bidding on a building or buying a home to have to go and look at what you're purchasing or what you want to put a bid in on. This brought also cause for concern. There was a request to have the RFP bidder submittals opened in a public meeting. That was very important.
Thank you.
I brought that up in the Legacy Committee, and that also was not followed.
Thank you. Next is
David Phillips here. I attended Central Junior High in 1973, so that building is special to me. And for you to get a taxpayer-funded maintenance for that building and then not use it on that building, that's appalling. Every one of you should be disgraced, because that building is more important to this community than what will ever be known. The Rochester City Council passed a resolution to support the preservation of that building. Oakland Township Historic District Commission passed a preservation resolution for that building. Rochester Hills City Council passed a resolution in support of preservation for that building. Rochester Avon Historical Society passed a resolution to support that building. Change organization reached over 1,200 supporters in preserving the administration buildings. Oakland County Preservation Architect provided multiple examples for successful adaptation for reuse of that building. The Michigan State Historic Preservation has received the National NRHP application and is under review. That building means a lot to a lot of people in this community, and I think it needs to be saved. And I think the best thing that you could do with that building is give it to the city of Rochester and let them make the best of that building instead of letting it be tore down and put in 24 more houses that Rochester does not need. That's my view. Thank you.
Good evening to the board and community members. I'm Courtney Dimitri, an RCS parent and district taxpayer. While attending new parent orientation last week, I was reminded of the 4 words that make up the school's mission statement. To lead with heart is to be helpful, accountable, respectful, and thoughtful. For a refresher's sake, I will share a few others. Stony Creek High School, a student-centered, caring community with high expectations. Rochester High School cites tradition, achievement, character. And my personal favorite, Van Hoosen Middle School, learning, growing, changing. These are the set standards for the students and faculty Surely, if we can expect this kind of integrity from teenagers, we should reasonably expect this from elected school board members. There's been an outcry from this community asking and now demanding you enforce these expectations on our superintendent and his staff as well. You have an obligation to the members of this district to restore justice. The DeVerna lawsuit has placed it on record. It is in black and white for all to read. The attack on freedoms is inexcusable. The abuse of power must stop, and I call for action. Where is the investigation? Where is the correction? Where are the consequences? Where is the acknowledgement? Our district has been tarnished by the outcome of this lawsuit. Ignoring these events is just another insult to our community. This is not going away. We are not willing to sweep this aside. We will not forget the actions taken against parents. We will not forget the behavior by people in power. And we will not forget the silence of this board. When you stand for nothing, you fall for everything, and your inactions speak to your character. Your lack of accountability to the employees of RCS, your lack of respect towards your constituents, your lack of thoughtfulness to the students you represent, your lack of learning, growing, and changing has become your legacy. The time for you to stand and lead with heart is now. Thank you.
I just wanted to read a letter. I started a Facebook group. All the vitriol that's been going on with some of the Facebook groups, I started We Support Rochester Community Schools, and this is a letter that I'd like to read from our group. This has been an unprecedented 2 years with attacks on public education that are only increasing, and I, for one, stand firmly against it. A strong public education system is crucial to the development of an informed and engaged citizenry. Without it, no democracy can exist and flourish. The guarantee of access to a free, quality, safe, and equitable public education should be a right afforded to every child, and securing that as opposed to destroying that guarantee should be a goal and a value that unites all Americans and is supported by our public policies and policymakers at all levels. It is difficult to watch the threads holding our public school system together being feverishly picked out by those who in all reality will be the most hurt by the loss of a strong public school system. Those who have dedicated their careers and lives to providing a public education to our children, thank you. Especially in these times. To our teachers, we love you and respect you to the utmost. You are teaching in a really difficult time. Please stay strong and stay with us as we work to stop the division and, frankly, stop the hatred that is being thrown your way. In closing, these attacks on our public education system are also an attack on the most marginalized of our country's children. As Senator Mallory McMorrow just stated in her speech in response to hateful and false rhetoric about her, quote, "I'm the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme, because you can't claim that you're targeting marginalized kids in the name of parental rights if another parent is standing up and saying no. We as parents must all stand up and say no. We must move forward united and with grace, working together to repair what is broken, rebuild our community, and to remember and celebrate the many wonderful educational opportunities that Rochester Community Schools offers our children. Hate must not win."
Good evening. My name is Tracy Herman, and I'm here tonight not to speak for any large group of parents, but actually a very small group. I'm here to represent my household. I'm here as a father to my children and a husband to my wife. Like many folks, we chose to live in Rochester for the schools, but for a multitude of reasons, we concluded that this school district was not right for our family. Our oldest now attends a private school, and we're currently looking into alternate options for our younger child. We were hoping that this would be the end of our dealings with the district, as we value our privacy, and we really didn't want to get involved in the ongoing conflicts plaguing this board and administration. That changed last Tuesday. See, last Tuesday, a parent in this community posted a list of names on social media. Apparently, these were names of individuals who were included in a 168-page dossier compiled by district employees to monitor parents who were outspoken against the district. While I feel it was in extremely poor taste for that individual to release such a list, I do respect that individual's right to free speech. I also understand that there wouldn't have been a list if there wasn't a dossier. And there wouldn't have been a dossier if there wasn't a clear effort by this district to silence parents who opposed district decisions and policies. I've come tonight to ask you, why does my wife's name appear in this dossier? I find it hard to believe that she would be considered a potential safety situation. She has constantly given of herself in a volunteer capacity to this district. More importantly, she has been a strong advocate for students with special needs, not only pushing for our own daughter, but for all students with needs to have the best opportunities possible. She has served on the Parent Advisory Committee as a board member and also represents this district at the county level. In addition, she's been a valuable resource for dozens of parents navigating the IEP process and the challenges that come with educating a child with needs. I would go as far as to say that if each of you possessed just a single ounce of her ability to consistently choose the harder right over the easy wrong, this district would easily live up to its pride and excellence mantra. At times she has asked difficult questions, at times she has pushed to hold district employees and administration accountable to the requirements that protect students with learning needs. All of this has been done in the interest of progress. Maybe her name appears just once in this dossier, maybe it appears 168 times. Either way, it has caused a large amount of undue stress on our household. I ask that someone from this board or administration reach out to me and or my wife personally to let us know how many times her name appears, what information was collected, and your reasoning for collecting such information. I'll be following up with a written request as well. Thank you.
Sarah.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Patton, and I have 3 children in Rochester Community Schools. I have 1 student at Hart and 3 at McGregor Elementary. I've been deeply involved in our community for the past 7 years. I've served on PTA committees and boards both at the district and local school level. Last spring, I answered the call, and I was hired on as a building sub at McGregor. I say this all to let you know how deeply entrenched within the school community we are. My husband and I are coaches, teachers, and parents within this district. I've learned that if you'd like to enact real and lasting change in our community, you should start at the most basic level, your child's classroom and school. Ask a teacher how you can help. Ask if they have any outstanding wish list items that you can donate. Ask if they need support for a special project. Ask if there's a problem that you can help solve. We all have unique skills and talents just waiting to be used for good. Get involved, make lasting changes. Spring is the time for many PTA elections, and it's a great way to get involved at your child's school. But we do have a problem at the topmost levels in our district administration. Bullying and intimidation meant to silence parents. Even if that parent is just simply asking a question or wanting clarification on an issue, they're labeled as bad apples. I've personally witnessed this within RCS, and it should never happen to the extent that we've seen with the recent lawsuits about First Amendment rights. We cannot simply let bygones be bygones. We cannot move on without a change in district leadership. We cannot have an us versus them attitude in order to move forward. And unfortunately, that is what we have here. The silence from the district administration and the Board of Education on these topics have been brought to light is disheartening to those who want to be a part of the conversation and engage with district leadership. We want to have civil, positive, productive conversations about issues that we as parents feel are important within the district. There are many parents who have skills and talents that are just waiting to be of use, but many parents feel silenced. We would like to have a seat at the table when decisions are being made that impact class sizes or classroom funding. We want to offer diversity of thought and engage with district leadership. I would propose using a town hall style type meeting where questions can be submitted and then answered directly at that time, even the very tough questions. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Heather Smiley. My kids, luckily, have graduated already. I just want to start off with a little, law lesson. Under Michigan law, the Board of Education has the ultimate responsibility to educate, provide for the safety and welfare of our children, work with parents to set curriculum and courses. As we've heard, it sounds like a lot of the parents have not actually been in the loop in regards to some of the books that we have. My particular concern is that in Hamlin Elementary, they have a book called Introducing Teddy, which is basically a breakdown of a boy who wants to be a girl or a girl who wants that kind of stuff. Also, we have Call Me Max, which is in Brooklyn Elementary, pretty much along the same lines with transgenderism, gay orientation in an elementary school. To my thought, any kind of sexual innuendo orientation has to be 18 or over, a mature audience. There has to be some kind of, if anyone remembers Two Live Crew, some kind of parental advisory on it. And I don't see any of these things on the books in the library, so I don't think that is really something that should be brought to the attention of small children. It is detrimental to their learning. It is not something they can emotionally, physically, or even mentally understand or comprehend. As far as our parents, our rights, our toes have been stepped on, our necks are being smushed into the dirt. We've had lawsuits that had to be in place because of how we've been mistreated. As far as transparency goes, I know that we've talked a little bit about fiscal responsibility and budgeting. I would like to know where the $190,000 from the lawsuit that was lost is going to come out of. What line item? Is that a general fund? Is that something that that particular person is going to settle with? As far as behavior of the people that I see in front of me, the dossiers that I've read are embarrassing, to say the least. The way that you have manipulated and worked behind the scenes to entrap parents with their own freedom of speech and then use it against them to withhold their employment, their paycheck, possibly their livelihood of their family is totally dishonest, disheartening, and disgusting. I also read that multiple parents in the district had to, well, okay, maybe let me rephrase that. PR had to be reached out to respond to parents' emails. So the board could not actually answer the questions of parents. They had to reach out to their PR to find out what would be appropriate, what they could say and what they could not say. That does not seem transparent to me. There are a multitude of people that have pretty much thrown each other under the bus as far as who did what and what position they had to play. Some people are taking the brunt of contacting and reporting any kind of monitoring that they did in regards to social media. That was then handed off to the FBI instead of the local police. I just want to let you know that we are keeping an eye on you, and that if this content is not taken care of and our voices are not heard, it will not be the last that you hear from us.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening. My name is Shannon Fascio, and I do have 3 children in the district. Tonight I'm going to read a speech written by another parent that is afraid to speak her truths. What a sad state of affair that parents are afraid to advocate for their own children. Here's a letter that she sent to me to read. Hello, this letter is in regard to sexualized books that are being made available in Rochester schools. The books I'm concerned about contain profanity, vulgarity, and are explicitly sexual. These books are made available to children under the age of 18, and I'm not okay with that. Countless parents have stood before this board to clearly ask for boundaries in these books. We would like to know what the guidelines are for sexual pornographic content in our schools. We would hope that the community would understand the difference between banning books and limiting access in schools to underage children. So please, stop with the banning books propaganda. I propose a rating system for these books similar to movies as a good policy for the district to implement. We limit sexual content in movies for RCS students. We limit sexual content on the internet for RCS students. So why do we not limit access to sexualized books? Anyone who wants to obtain pornographic books for their children would need to give consent to the R or the X-rated books. Why is that not an option? It is not only the books in the upper grades that I find grossly inappropriate, said this parent. I also have an issue with books that we're finding in our elementary schools. Books such as George, about a 4th grade transgender girl who is discussing removing his penis with scissors and taking hormones to change his gender in 4th grade.
Our kindergartners have access to check out that book in Rochester schools. My problem isn't with the book itself, but rather that you're offering it to our young children, and we would never know. Young children who are not developed and emotionally ready to make lifelong decisions about their gender. I have a problem with removing the parent from the knowledge that this book is accessible to their children. I encourage every parent and citizen in Rochester to understand what is going on in this community. Whether you have 1 year left in our district or you don't have any students at all, this affects the future generations of all children. This affects the reputation of our schools and the value of our homes. We must speak up and stop the destruction of our children's education, their innocence, their well-being. As a taxpayer in this district, I am disgusted that my money is going towards buying content that goes against my beliefs.
Time's up.
I care deeply for the children of this community.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Beth Markle. I've lived in Rochester Hills for 20 years now, and we chose this location after having moved here from Culpeper, Virginia, because primarily of the school district. We looked at a lot of different locations and decided that RCS was probably the best education for our children. Our son graduated in 2011 from Stony Creek, our daughter in 2007 from Stony Creek. She went on to MSU to get a degree in education. She went on to the University of Texas in San Antonio to get a master's in education, has been a teacher since 2015 in San Antonio, Texas. Our son graduated in 2011, went on to Michigan Tech University, graduated with 2 engineering degrees. God bless Mr. Thuma at Stony Creek. And he has 2 degrees, one in mechanical engineering, one in biomedical engineering, and he is now working on his MBA with a wife and 2 young children at home. I think RCS proudly gave our kids a good education. But when I read the paper, and I have watched what's going on in this district, I'm embarrassed. My kids are embarrassed. I think your behavior is embarrassing. For the people on the school board, I can only say this: not to act is to act. And your lack of action has allowed the petty middle school behavior of really well-paid employees who work for parents, who work for me. Even though my kids are graduated, we have remained in Rochester Hills because we support the school district, and in fact have been Atom Bot Robotics, First Robotics volunteers, my husband, until just this last January, February, and March. If that doesn't prove dedication to the district and to the kids, I don't know what does. Because we're invested in this, even though our kids are gone, grown and flown, as they say. But not to act on the reprehensible, disgusting, ridiculous shaming of parents, creating dossiers so that parents are afraid to come and speak to you. You should be embarrassed. You should feel shame for that. And I mean that sincerely. Your lack of action has allowed this behavior to continue. And I thought surely when we got here tonight, because I didn't plan to speak, I thought surely when we got here tonight, this would be addressed. Your actions, tracking down parents, stalking parents, following parents, writing up about parents, it's embarrassing, and you should be fired.
When I first read about what was going on with the school district, I didn't believe it. And then the more that I read, I found out that parents were ticked off. Somebody on the board, if not all the board, decided that they were going to get back at the parents by hiring an attorney to write cease and desist letters which had zero effect other than to intimidate. But it didn't stop there. You could have stopped it there, but you didn't. You had to go beyond that and start calling their employers. Are you people so insecure and paranoid and vindictive that you go and call people's employers If you're that scared about those people being a threat, you should have called the Rochester cops. That's their job, not your job. If you had paid attention to your job, you would have dealt with these parents on a face-to-face basis, and you haven't done that. In the military, I understand one of your board members is ex-Marines, I think. In the military, when they see behavior like this, they fire the guy. And what they say is, we are relieving you of command due to our loss of confidence in your ability to lead. That's what this board deserves. Now, I don't know who knew what when. I do know this happened. And so I think since you guys haven't fessed up and admitted to what was going on, we need an investigation to find out who did what so we can get rid of the people that did this kind of stuff and bring in new people that know how to behave like adults instead of fifth graders. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say thank you to all the parents that came out today and spoke their minds and being here. It's very important coming from where I live in East Point or some other districts where you don't have so many parents caring a lot about what's happening, and that's why we have struggling schools in poor communities, because the parents don't come out and care as much as they do here. Whether we agree with them or not, they really care to share their opinions. I'm struggling. I'm tired. I don't know how long I can try to fight the fight to try to make sure our kids are protected and cared for. About a month ago or so, I heard a video of the kids being recorded in the classroom. And I'm thinking, what if my son with an IEP who has social difficulty is recorded saying something inappropriate? What if my goddaughter who is transgender is there in that classroom speaking her truth? Or my niece who's lesbian is in that class coming out to her classmates, and it's all over Rochester. I'm concerned because the teachers in the class, the kids in that class, somebody secretly recorded them without their permission. That's difficult. I'm a pastor. You can record me anytime you want and say whatever. But these kids are being vulnerable in a situation. If you don't like the class, the kids can be taken out of the class. They can talk to the teachers, the parents. But I'm tired of people putting our kids in this type of mess. And I wanted to quit this work. I wanted to get rid of being on the PTA, get rid of DEI. But I remember being a volunteer at the band here in Rochester because there isn't a whole lot of parents that look like me volunteering. Every time I go someplace, I'm the only usually African-American male. And I've got to sit through and hear everybody talk about how this is that and that is it. And nobody really cares about my experience. Nobody really cares about my child's experience. But I care about being there to make sure every kid has a great experience. And right when I was thinking about quitting, I was volunteering for the band and giving them high five at some event that they had. And one of my son's friends, who I've been volunteering in their classroom since she was in first grade, she said, "Thank you, Mr. Rush, for being here. You mean the world, you being here all the time." I may be the only African-American male she sees, or the situation, or that, because this school district is not that diverse. It's just that simple. It's not. And some people love it that way, like it to be that way. I just want to make sure kids are loved and cared for. And I'm glad that people care about it, but recording kids privately, teachers, holding them accountable, you as the board need to make sure this stuff has to stop. Hold those accountable because that is just wrong. Kids should have a safe place to speak their minds in their classroom. My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, community. My name is Elena Martinez Denverno, and I am here to speak on behalf of another parent who is afraid to speak to you. So I am reading what they wrote. My name is, and I'll leave that anonymous, and I've been an RCS parent since. I have always assumed everyone here was doing their jobs as good, decent humans of this community. Then I started to see the culture and climate of RCS was becoming very toxic and dysfunctional, and that's when I became interested in learning more about RCS. My disdain with RCS has nothing to do with whether or you lean towards the right or left of the political spectrum. The issue with RCS is simply right versus wrong. Good humans versus bad humans, ethical versus non-ethical. It's about walking the talk, not just talking the talk. Is it right to publish codes of conduct that look good on paper, but RCS doesn't follow them themselves? The code states we need to feel safe, valued, and respected, but you don't follow your own mantras. Shaner and friends continually tout in these meetings and community emails how much they care about the children, and it's all about the children, and all means all. But how can you care so much about our children if you egregiously dismiss our parental concerns and our voices? When parents are in distress, our kids are in distress. When parents feel unsafe, devalued, and disrespected, our kids feel it too. We parents are frustrated, we have been violated, we are angered, and we have been intimidated and retaliated against by this RCS board and administration. Parents have been publicly berated by the superintendent, who then received shameless rave performance reviews by the board based on no tangible measures. Our kids can see us and they can hear us and they pick up our energy. When parents are in distress, our kids bring the same anxiety and resentment to school with them every day. Even the grandparents in our family know who you are and what you have done to this community. My therapist knows about you too. The families who have received unethical, baseless cease and desist letters from RCS to attempt and intimidate them into silence, my heart goes out to them. These families have dealt with pain and mental anguish that I would not wish on anyone. Did anyone think about the anxiety and stress these kids felt knowing their parents were intimidated, ignored, berated, and even fired due to wrongful acts of this administration? So when you say all means all, and we love the children, understand that all means respecting all parents too. You continually tout your commitment to social emotional wellness and conflict resolution. Don't we teach children they must apologize to move forward? Why are you not following your own guidelines? Where's the apology to the parents and the children and all the families that you've personally hurt by your selfish, reckless, wasteful, and bullish actions? Where's the apologies for causing the mental health decline of these children and families? What have you done to resolve the conflict in this community? Moral development is another key development indicator taken from RCS site developing and a sense of right and wrong.
Thank you.
How have you performed
Next up
on
is
that one?
Colleen Carney.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Carney. I have 2 kids in the district. I'm just curious what happened to the thoughtful proposal that Joe presented at the last board meeting. There was no acknowledgement whatsoever, and I'm really surprised that this is coming from one of your colleagues. And I really wasn't even going to speak tonight, but it said a lot to me that a man sitting there next to you all, and you didn't say anything. So I guess that should tell the community something.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is John Markle, and you've already heard my student's CV, or my children's CV earlier from my wife. They're well accomplished and they're graduates of Rochester Community Schools. We looked at 156 houses before we relocated 20 years ago into the Rochester Community School District. We did that on the advice of a principal of the year and a teacher of the year who was a relative of mine, who told us this was the best school district to come from. And you already know how my wife feels, so I'm not going to rehash that. What I want to ask you is this, because I used to be an appointed official, like 6 of you up there are elected officials. You swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Michigan. And in both of those constitutions, it says that I have the right that my father fought for and that our forefathers died for, that 13 young men and women died for in Afghanistan less than a year ago, to stand here and address you, and not to have my name put on a list, because I did. Not to have a paid administration member apparently go through and make this list. That is shameful. And every one of you should be going, what the heck happened here? Your community is in an uproar. It's outrageous. And I cannot believe that you would sit there and not do anything about it. So now everybody has to FOIA anything they want. That's the law. My question to you is, where's your FOIA form on your website? Because I've looked. I've looked and looked and looked. You need to follow our FOIA process. Where's your FOIA process on your website? Oh, just come over to the school district and get it. In case you haven't checked, gas is $4 a gallon. We just celebrated Earth Day. The world's going to come to end in eight years, and you want me to drive over to your administration building to get a FOIA request form. I live in Oakland Township. I can get it on our frickin' website 8 years ago. Your guys' budget is like 100 times, okay, that's maybe an exaggeration, of what ours is in the township, and I can get a FOIA request on the website. Maybe you ought to think about that. The next question is, where are these meetings publicly noticed? Where are they publicly noticed? This is a governmental body, and you are supposed to publicly notice your meetings, along with an agenda. Where is it? Because I don't see it. If you don't want the people coming to start turning over all the rocks, ma'am, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you.
You folks need to start doing your jobs correctly. Thank you.
All right, so I'll probably surprise a few people. I agree with what Bruce said earlier. I did last meeting, right? We all can agree on something. Majority of us agree on a lot more than we disagree. The public education system is the bedrock to opportunity. So when people want to paint this as a conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat thing, it's not. The narratives out there, again, have to stop. And we've heard multiple of them tonight. Conversations are nuanced. So when the gentleman got up here and wanted to act like the Bible was comparable to a graphic novel, they're not. Reading a bunch of words and looking at pictures are two different things. That's something we all can understand. If we're not willing to have that honest conversation and understand nuances involved, what's the point? I've challenged everyone. What are we afraid to talk to people about? I've sat down with Albert Rush and we had a conversation. It was a very productive conversation. I'm waiting for the next one as we hope to continue that dialogue. I've had conversations with the teacher in the DEI video that was released. It was not a comfortable conversation. It was productive. I've talked to PTA presidents from other schools that had parents in their area that was afraid to bring up questions to them, and she really acknowledged that she didn't understand why they were afraid, but she was willing to hear it. And so the idea that people get up here and yell and scream is just not true. Yes, there's emotion at times, but we have continued to say people have breaking points. And for us to see what we saw tonight, for that parent to have that breaking point, that should be a really big red flag to everyone in our community. We are going to see people break. That is not good. Leadership is to de-escalate situations. And we are continuing to escalate it by the not having actions. Why? Why? So we can push an ideology that makes people feel good, makes adults feel good about themselves at the risk of what harm it's going to cause. So again, I'm going to continue to bring up DEI, and it's how it just is wrong. Ibram Kennedy is one of the leading voices on it. In his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, one of the core principles is you do not judge a group based on an individual's actions. But we've listened to multiple people come up here tonight and cast a broad generalization on all parents that question the district. Would that not make them racist by that definition? Are they not racist? They're certainly not anti-racist because they're not practicing the principles. This is the logic that we're challenging. Let's get back to where we actually talk to one another, deal with the facts, and understand there's nuance.
Thank you.
I was up here already, Michelle Manhire. I wanted to finish some of my thoughts here of what I was trying to say earlier. Mainly, let's see where I left off here. I was talking about that the people that are coming up here are simply exercising their First Amendment rights. their state constitutional rights, or most importantly, their God-given rights to raise their children themselves, but rather, instead we're being called parent agitators, troublemakers, or worst, domestic terrorists. When did leadership make this egregious U-turn in how they deal with those they aim to serve? Public employees are sanctioned to be stewards of this institution, reflecting the goals of the people in the community they serve. Somehow this concept seems to be lost at the moment at Rochester Community Schools. Actions speak louder than words, and many of us are watching the consistent hypocrisies unfold from the disconnect between the rhetoric of the district and its actions. Our leadership must be held accountable for not fulfilling the intent of their contracts or their bonds in order for respect to return to this district, and hopefully therefore to return the discourse between all parties involved. Another issue that I wanted to talk about was special education, and how, as a very large utilizer of the special education system in Rochester schools, by all three of my children, I'm very saddened by the fact that it seems to be appropriated by the whole DEI movement. DEI people came to our PAC meetings a couple years ago, just right before COVID shut down. And I thought to myself, isn't this kind of like preaching to the choir? I've joked with other adults that I'm like, people in the special education arena were DEI before DEI was cool. I've been fighting for 17 years for a valid education for my children, and it has nothing to do with the color of their skin or some emotion that somebody feels. It has everything to do with the fact they are genetically affected in a way that requires them extra services to achieve an education. There's going to be a lot more that I need to talk to about all this stuff, but it needs to be said right here, right now. Special education parents are feeling very upset about this appropriation of our issues by those who have nothing but feelings being hurt.
I'm Carol Beth Litcui. I have 2 kids in the district. Here's an example of some of the porn that we're talking about in the graphic novel. This is a picture of 2 naked people having oral sex. So in response to those parents and partisan teachers who are working to keep porn in the schools, here's a suggestion, and I heard it earlier today too. How about we use a rating system for the books, such as the one already created at ratedbooks.org? Perhaps books are given a rating 1 through 5. Books from 3 to 5 that have more extreme violent sexual content and nudity are kept separate. The default is that students are opted out for these books unless their parents opt them in. That would put the ultimate responsibility for the kids back on parents, and it would free the schools and teachers from scrutiny, protecting everyone, especially the kids. Society already has this structure in place for movies to protect kids, so why not books? Remember, the DEI Parent Network, Free to Read, and activist groups have been spreading false messages that parents are against diversity, inclusion, and minority groups, but that is simply not true. Those are lies to distract from the real issue, and they may have confused some people. The main point is that schools shouldn't be exposing kids to sexually explicit content under the guise that it makes them feel safe, valued, and included. Treating all humans with kindness and having respect for different viewpoints is the best way to make all students feel safe, valued, and included. Public schools shouldn't be unduly influenced by religion or politics, whether that's coming from the left or the right. Educational institutions should be neutral, fair, balanced, and focused more on academics and less on sex and politics.
I'm sorry to take up your time a second time here, but I just wanted to respond with some of the author's words of some of the books, some of the context that's being missed in the passages being shared, I also wanted to mention, in response to the idea that schools have a rating system within the school libraries, I want the board to be very careful in consideration of that, because that is still considered censorship. Change in access to materials, even among different age groups, is considered censorship according to the American Library Association, and it has some legal repercussions related to that. So I want to make sure we do our diligence. After the passage that was shared from All Boys Aren't Blue today, which is a words book, not a graphic novel, which is also, by the way, the #3 banned and challenge book in America right now and last year, according to the American Library Association. But after that passage, author George M. Johnson, who's a Black queer author, this is a memoir, he writes, "I contemplated whether I would write about you," referring to the cousin who molested him, "now that you are dead. As much disappointment and even anger I once held for you at certain points in my life, I now feel sorrow that nobody was there to save you from whatever it was you needed saving from. That is not to say that what you did was right. It's to say that now I understand it from a place that's not centered in my own trauma, and have created a space where I have the empathy for my abuser while still acknowledging that you were harmed. I don't know this for sure, but my gut tells me that you too were a victim, and so you made me a victim. Violence can be a cycle like that. I can only hope that this story frees someone else who may be holding guilt from an encounter with an abuser. The story is complicated, but I don't want it to be confusing. I was an adult when I found empathy for my cousin, a choice that I made in processing all that happened that night. I want to reiterate that his actions were wrong, and I was a victim. It is not a requirement that you ever find empathy for an abuser. Make it a requirement to hold your abuser accountable." George writes of the book that I am using my story to teach kids about the mistakes that I made the first times I was having sex, so that they don't make those same mistakes. I'm teaching kids about not feeling guilty when sexual abuse happens and how to recognize that abuse, because most teens don't even recognize that they've been abused, and how to fight back against those traumas that you've held on to for so very long. They're leaving this very, very important context out, intentionally, of course, to say that my book is pornographic. Books with heavy topics are not going to harm children. Children still have to exist in a world full of these heavy topics and are not going to be affected by them whether they read the book or not. Having this book, though, gives them the tools, the language, the resources, and the education so that when they have to deal with some of these heavy topics, they might have a roadmap for how to handle it. These are the passages that you're not going to see, I think, usually read out loud in the board meetings, because it puts the story in context more, and it is less, I guess my point is that you're being pretty reductive when you only read and you pick the most, as you say, pornographic, sexually explicit materials from the book. And
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
the passage I read was in the book, yes. I can cite the
Thank
pages
you.
and I can show you.
That concludes the public comments. The next item on the agenda is...
I don't know how to fill out a card at this point, but I do want to tell the parents in this room that that book is traumatizing.
Please.
And it does not help a person who has been sexually molested heal. Take it outside of the schools.
Next item on the agenda is additional comments. Members of the administration, any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. First and foremost, I want to, this building is going to be used very early tomorrow morning for a choir event, and I really want to thank Josh Wrinkle and his entire staff for really moving quickly so we could use this room for the board meeting. So a big shout out to the staff here at Rochester High. Dan back in the booth, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. You know, we know you'll work some long hours, and we love you. And we're looking forward to convocation season starting up here Thursday. I'm losing my voice, so I'm gonna let you go.